Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the wonderful lunch and had a little bit of time to network. The next 15 minutes or so, I plan on, energizing a little bit. Full lunch. You want to make sure that everyone's pumped up, and I'm going to set the stage. First things first, what I want to really talk about is two keywords out there, on the opening slide. One, small business. Look at the crowd here. 220 plus, representatives from various small businesses. This is no longer small. This is large. The power, of small businesses when they combine together, when they team together, is unimaginable, and that's exactly what DHS is looking for. But what is it that they are looking for in you? If you're already supporting DHS and you want to really grow, what is it that they're looking for? If you're not supporting DHS and you plan to penetrate and demonstrate your capabilities to DHS, what is it that you want to offer very differently? And you do that through innovation. Here. Innovation is the new oil. In fact, I'm going to go a step back and say, what? It's no longer about oil. Gone are those big threes. Tesla is out there. It's called disruptive innovation. Gasoline stations, gas tanks. And I was out there at the Dallas Mall the other day. In between the parking spots, you have the electric chargers right there. What is that? That's disrupting the gasoline stations out there. That's disrupting the business, that the gasoline stations do in terms of auto servicing and selling other products. Thinking completely different. Thinking beyond the ordinary, and then thinking very differently to be able to use your front bumpers as a storage space. If you have seen the Teslas, you have two storages, front and back. 4 of us could fit 4 golf clubs, and then drive in Tesla without any issues. Spacious enough. And that's the kind of convenience innovation brings to the table. What is in it? Small businesses that you can do. I mean, gone are those days when people were focusing on human capital. Get a whole bunch of folks, do that, and work on relationships and focus on building the structure. These days it is purely driven by what knowledge you bring to the table. What kind of business value, how are you differentiating in terms of the business models that you're providing? So some thoughts, surrounding that. 10 different types of, innovation that are out there. If you really look into it. Process, from a process standpoint, what you can differentiate. From an offering standpoint, what you're offering, how you're offering it. From a delivery standpoint, typical channels. And then from a financial standpoint. I'll give you classic private sector examples, surrounding this. Process, GE, half of you probably have already read the Six Sigmas and the Jack Welch and the story surrounding that. He built the organization, the aviation business and everything surrounding the process, the core processes. From an offering standpoint, look at what Intel's got to offer. Intel Core, 4, 5, 6, from the Pentiums and the Celerons, they're constantly building that. And then from an offering standpoint, even from a product quality and product specification standpoint, Apple, classic example. No more keyboards and all of that. It's touchscreen and the wonders that it provides. From a delivery standpoint, you could take channels like FedEx and everyone trying to do it to the latest drone-based delivery services that Amazon is exploring out there. Walmart, classic example of value chains. Classic example in terms of how they are controlling financials. The reason you may wonder, hey, he's mentioning all this. Fortune 500 companies out there. We are all small businesses. I have a bunch of folks. I don't have the necessary, financial capitals or, human power to make that difference. All these companies started small. All these companies started really, really small. How many of you really read the story about Nest Labs, Nest being bought by Google, $3.2 billion. $3.2 billion. If you go back, read about Tony Fadell and what he did. This guy was a contractor working for Apple. He was helping design and develop the iPods. And then went out, joined with another guy. Palo Alto, California, garage, started the company in 2010. Now, most important thing is he had a problem. How did the automatic learning thermostats came into picture? He wanted to build an energy-efficient home in California. And then he goes to the shops for thermostats. Hey, none of these thermostats meet my need. I want a thermostat that is energy efficient. Do you guys have one? No, we don't have one. He came back to the garage, started developing one. What did he do? He applied the learning thermostat concept to it. And then later on, went on to, this is in May of 2010, and we are still in January of 2014, less than 4 years, from 0 to $3.2 billion. One of the probably the fastest, grown companies. And then later on, he went on to diversify that to build, smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. Google is not buying Nest for the learning thermostat. They are buying, for the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detectors, and then they're going to combine that with the Google Glass offering. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is I have been using thermostat for the last 20, 30 years. Does not necessarily mean that I continue to use that the same way. He thought differently. He applied a different business model. And then, he went on to develop one. He started all of it with a pain, with a customer need. And who was the customer? Himself. So as small businesses, start looking into areas, within DHS, if you're already supporting. Hey, I've been supporting for 4 years, doesn't mean that you should stop innovating. Even on areas that you're already supporting, they are looking for, innovation. And I'll come to a few examples in terms of why you need to do that, from an innovation standpoint. Innovation process and focus areas. You have to start with the customers. What are your customer expectations? And what is it that they're currently experiencing? What is it that they want to experience in the future? It's got to be future focused. Start thinking about that. How am I going to brand myself as a small business? How am I going to determine the route to the market? And from a product, service, whatever you're offering, what is it that I can design better? And if I'm already supporting, please do not stop innovating. How can I support better? Start raising those standards, on those areas. And then, of course, from a business process and value model, you got to think about what is the return on investment. How am I going to, implement this and, expand it from a network capability standpoint. I want to throw in a couple of examples. Boeing, 1910. William Boeing, this guy graduated, studied, developed, he was in the timber business. Has anybody here wondered why, Boeing's got his offices, near the Seattle area? It's because of the spruce wood, Back in those days, when they really wanted to build, the airplanes, wood was used because, it could help, float it. He was in the timber industry. He said, hey, I am so good at designing things with wood. Why can't I take that and build aeroplanes? He didn't stop with building, furnitures and, typical, household commodities with wood. He took it. He took the leapfrog effort of, investing and building the airplane companies in the flight side. And that is how, they ended up. And they are located now, out there, but that was the fundamental reason. So understand, the location needs, understand your customer needs, and then see how you can diversify as small businesses. And I can go on and on, give examples, in terms of General Dynamics, how they started it, very small way back in 1896. Northrop Grumman, very classic example, Jack Northrop. 1916, this guy was a draftsman. How many of you here are from the Air Force? If you could raise your hands. A lot of folks, we see a lot of folks. This guy was a draftsman. He would design, for the aircraft and for the flights back in 1916. In 1976, and this guy had this idea for like so long. Towards the later part of his years, towards the end, he goes down and, talks to NASA and says, hey, I have this new concept called low draft and high lift concept, and I really want to apply that in building aircraft. This can be like really good, very useful. 10 months before he passed away in 1981, NASA came back to him and said, this is an excellent concept. We are going to take that and actually build. B-2s were built on that concept, which came in extremely handy at the Cold War. The timing couldn't be any better. So understand your customer needs and then work towards that. The needs of DHS back in 2001 and 2005 and 2010 to the environment that we are currently living has changed significantly. Efficiency, effectiveness, cost controls are playing significant factor. We've gone through the sequestrations and the budget cuts and all of that. So it is extremely important that you're not only offering and building services and solutions that meet their needs, but also at the right cost. So what are some of the needs, from Homeland Security? I touched, briefly on those. Their expectations and experience, your stakeholders, their usages, CBP, Customs and Border Protection's needs today compared to what they had, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, has changed significantly. Please understand that. What you are trying to build, offer, from products or services. Innovation is commonly misconstrued as something, hey, we got to build a product, otherwise, we are not innovating. Completely wrong. Product is just one of the 4, components. You got to differentiate yourself in terms of your business models, in terms of the customer experience, in terms of how you're providing customer service, in terms of what you're offering, in terms of how you're offering that services, in terms of the business model. And if you don't innovate, even on your corporate side, which allows you to reduce your overhead costs and be able to provide it at a very cost-effective manner, you got to innovate everywhere that touches, an industry and touches the government. Priorities, from a Homeland Security standpoint, of course, other than the clouds and the cyber and the mobile that you constantly hear, very important thing is you have to be able to address their mission needs. The mission needs are published, transparent, and available. They have, each of the component agencies as well as the headquarters has very clear strategic plans and strategic goals. They all have a charter and strategic goals in place. You want to make sure that your focus areas as small businesses is directly supporting those national priorities as it may apply. If you're not supporting the mission, then you're not in that critical path or in the critical need. So it's extremely important that you align your business model, you align your services to meet those national priorities. And if you're in the IT, gone are those days when you say, hey, IT is a support function. No, it's all IT enabled. I can't imagine, anything that, if somebody says, hey, this opportunity is IT, this opportunity is non-IT, I kind of disagree with them. Everywhere there is an IT component. How you build, how you develop, how you deploy your services within your corporate side, there's an IT component involved there. You can differentiate there. Service management aspects, development aspects, design aspects, even from a strategy standpoint, how you are capturing those strategy goals, how you are aligning to it, how you are measuring it, how you are reporting it back, to your agency in terms of, hey, you are at 72% against your strategic goal 2.1. Wouldn't it be really nice to track it all the way down to the daily tasks and report it all the way back at the strategic goal level, saying that, hey, I'm at 72%, I'm doing good, green, red, yellow. That's how, we start implementing IT in those areas. And to implement IT applications, whatever services you're offering, you need to have a very strong infrastructure. If you architect and if you don't build that supporting infrastructure, everything on top of that as building block, is not going to stand still. So it's extremely important. Anything that you do from an IT standpoint, you're having that supporting infrastructure. And again, leadership in fundamental research. Department of Labor has a Chief Innovation Officer. And, GSA has an innovation center, has an innovation lab, where, even from an acquisition standpoint, they are focusing. CBP has what you call it as OTA, Office of Technology, Innovation, and Acquisition, because he leads that, They are trying to apply innovation way back where it begins. Where does opportunities and customer needs begin? At the acquisition stage. Later on you will hear it from our keynote speaker, Mike Smith, in terms of strategic sourcing. He's going to throw a lot of numbers, in terms of accomplishments, $1.8 billion in savings and counting. And if you really look into it, he's able to quantify all of that because he's applying analytics. He's able to quantify in terms of this is how much I was able to save. IT is involved all the way down there. So you got to be, leaders. You're going to hear from Frank Burrows, from small business innovation research standpoint. He's going to talk in terms of how small businesses can really be those leaders in fundamental research and, help agencies innovate. Not only S&T, but all DHS components, because S&T supports all of those components. I wanted to throw in a diagram out there. On the way to the left, if you really look into it, typical stovepiped, hey, these are the capabilities that I have, and, an a la carte of services, this is what it is, go take it. And stovepiped, you want acquisition, this is how it's got to, this is how we do it, and this is how we will support it to you. Oh, you want some technology out there? I'll throw in some cloud. I'll throw in some mobile. It's not going to work like that. And look into that, on the right side, if you really look into it, that kind of signifies, from a budget cut standpoint, we are drowning in terms of the budget needs, but, our list of activities that we need to accomplish, as an agency has increased significantly. So they're looking for creative ways. Hey, I don't want an umbrella that just serves, from protecting me from rain. The umbrella can also be used as a boat when needed. Start thinking differently, start acting differently, and be future focused, and understand your customer needs. If you don't understand your customer needs, and Steve Jobs used to say this, people and companies who innovate end up as leaders, others trail behind. What are some of the priorities from a Homeland Security standpoint? Their national priorities, obviously, very important. That's an important driver. Cost savings, we have heard about it, significantly. Even when the economy is doing good, even when we have, gone are those days, but I'm still saying from a hypothetical standpoint, even when we have a higher budget, if you differentiate yourself being the cost savings provider, you're always valued high. Infuse technology in terms of your services. If you are offering something that does not have a technology component, start thinking about infusing that. Focus on operational excellence. It is not just about winning. It is also about executing it. If you fail to execute, your life is short-lived in an agency or any customer that you're supporting. Understand your needs, and the needs are not constant. The needs is a significant variable. The needs constantly change. Don't refer back to the statement of work on a 5-year contract and say, hey, this is what you did it. Work with your acquisition officers. Work with the program officers. Understand, hey, your needs have changed. And before you execute this option here, we may be able to save you X amount of dollars and Y amount of people. Or your scope is significantly increased. I think at this marginal increased cost, we may be able to provide these additional services that you need. Work on those areas and work within the boundaries of what the contract can allow. Agencies within DHS, they need increased collaboration and information sharing. It's all about transparency, not only in this administration and within DHS, but across. You're going to see that more and more. Make sure that you're doing that. I listed a bunch of areas out there. I'm not going to go into detail here, but I'll be more than glad to discuss later. Cybersecurity, mobile computing, cloud, big data, predictive analytics. All of this, if you really look into it, all these needs have existed at least for a decade. They have just taken an increased importance because they've accumulated over a period of time. And when the sequestration, the budget cuts, and increased need for cost savings came into picture, all of this started taking, an higher importance. But start thinking about, hey, CBP wants to improve broader security. What am I as a small business doing? How can I differentiate myself? What can be the niche offering that I can do there to improve that? Start thinking about those. From a FEMA standpoint, hurricanes and tornadoes are happening, every year, several times. What is it that I can do? How can I combine, the mobile computing and the big data to be able to use all that historic data that is available there and be able to disseminate, alerts, warnings, decision-making, information, regarding threat preparedness and response to the FEMA guys out there on the field, to their mobile devices. Now, you have just combined 3 of those into your own creative solutions. Now, take one more on that. Oh, how about at any given point of time, I know where a major disaster is happening, or if I were clearly and accurately, forecast the path of a hurricane or a tornado, then from a location-based solution, I can deploy the maximum amount of FEMA responders and the first responders to those areas. Same thing applies for border security. If I know where exactly most of those events and border issues are going to happen, then I am able to better and optimally utilize my border security resources in those areas. Start thinking. I'm just here to get you to think on those areas. Few focus areas here. I mean, you can do all of that, but at the end of the day, if you are not out there helping the agency achieve efficiency, quality, cycle time, visibility from a transparency standpoint, and help them collaborate amongst themselves as well as with the public-private sites, that's extremely important. That's the way you're going to differentiate. Some questions, that small businesses should ask themselves. You have to develop a business strategy. You have to have a strategy, that defines what you're going to solve for your clients. And whatever you're going to solve for your clients will change, over a period of time. Make sure that you're flexible and adaptable, to those needs. And I, threw in a bunch of those questions, that my chief development officer, always asks me and a lot of us within our company. What is it you're trying to solve? What is the value proposition? Who is your target market? Don't try to be everything to everyone. Know your limitations. Understand what you're going to solve for your small businesses. Understand the competitive landscapes, that are existing out there. What is it that you're going to differentiate? And understand the current needs as well as the future needs, and never be too late, to get to the market in terms of what you're offering. And then it goes on, a bunch of questions there. Some strategic thoughts, connect with your customers. The small business outreach here is an excellent opportunity to talk to your peers in terms of what's happening out there. Talk to some of the industry experts like Mike Smith and Frank Burrows and all the panelists that we have here. Ask them the right questions, understand what their needs are, and then be very iterative in terms of your strategy and planning. Don't try to do all at once. DHS is big in agile, and fundamentals of agile is trying to be iterative, and be open, to experiment. Never hesitate to fail the first time. You will succeed in the long run. And I was throwing an example out there in terms of the iPod. Don't try to be the iPod. You don't need to be the iPod. When Nest was created, it was never meant to be the iPod, but then it grew on. Sorry. Some closing remarks out there. You have to involve everyone. And later on in this, even today, we will talk about how small businesses, large businesses, mentor prodigies, disadvantaged small businesses, government, industry outreach programs, how all of these things can come together and collaborate, and that's very important. And focus on the broad areas. And I already said, it's not on the development of new products alone. Disruptive innovation, I gave you the classic examples of Tesla. What is your success mantra? Be the first to solve. DHS likes that. Not only DHS, any federal agency. If you cannot be the first to solve, and if somebody else is already doing that work, do it better. Be the one who can do it faster to solve. You stand. And again, whatever you do, make sure that they are better solutions and they are lasting solutions. That way around, your focus is not short-lived. Any questions?